A multipolar response fills the vacuum left by sanctions and isolation. China, importing roughly 1.5 million Iranian barrels daily, faces a choice: mediate to protect Belt and Road, or leverage chaos to speed de-dollarization. Russia benefits from high prices, yet fears a lasting US footprint on its southern flank. We shift from a unipolar order toward a fractured multipolar trap, where regional wars trigger immediate, irreversible global consequences. To understand regime fragility, examine the sociology of the street. The 2026 protests, accelerated by years of hyperinflation, peaked as the strikes began. The flag rally effect failed. Survival instinct dominated. With 3.2 million displaced, the social contract evaporated. Among urban youth, the state is reframed, not as protector but as catalyst of catastrophe. Basij enforcement clashes with dispersed, digitally coordinated cells, short bursts, rapid dispersal, minimal hierarchy. While Operation Epic Fury dominated the skies, the silent front was equally devastating. US Cyber Command initiated Protocol Blackout, a Tier 1 offensive cyber operation targeting Iran's critical infrastructure. This wasn't email hacking. It was the systemic dismantling of SCADA, the digital nervous system for power, water treatment, and refinery controls. From a technological sociology lens, the result was a digital dark age. Grid failure severed communications with provincial IRGC units within hours. Localized command and control collapsed, explaining early field failures observed in the first 48 hours. On February 28, 2026, the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East was fundamentally dismantled in a single 12-hour window. This was not a conventional escalation. It was the execution of a decapitation strike on a scale never before seen in modern warfare. Coordinated between US and Israeli forces, nearly 900 precision strikes targeted the core of the Islamic Republic's command and control infrastructure. From a strategic perspective, the objective was clear: the immediate neutralization of Iran's nuclear capabilities and its senior military leadership. The opening salvos achieved a result that had been the subject of intelligence speculation for decades: the death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. In military science, this created an immediate power vacuum, a sudden, severe weakening of a central authority that forces a violent reconfiguration of the balance of power. But as we will see, removing the head of a state does not always lead to the collapse of its nervous system. In the sociology of power, transitions are most dangerous when they are forced by external violence. By March 8th, less than 10 days after the initial strikes, the Assembly of Experts confirmed Mojtaba Khamenei as Iran's third Supreme Leader. This appointment represents a historic and highly controversial shift toward hereditary rule, effectively morphing the 1979 revolutionary system into what some analysts call a clerical monarchy. But his legitimacy is fragile. Unlike his father, Mojtaba lacks the undisputed religious stature to impose discipline across the regime's rival factions. He inherits a nation already fractured by the 2025-26 domestic protests and a military that is now under the direct, unmediated control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. The IRGC is no longer just a shadow state. In the wake of the decapitation strikes, it has stepped fully into the vacuum, acting as the primary pillar of regime preservation. For university students of international relations, the question isn't just who sits in the seat of power, but whether the institutional machinery beneath them can survive a war of attrition. In the world of macroeconomics, there is perhaps no single geographic feature more critical or more fragile than the Strait of Hormuz. Through this 21-mile-wide passage flows 20% of the world's daily oil supply. Following the February 28th strikes, Iran executed a de facto closure of the strait, effectively holding the global energy market hostage. The immediate result was a violent upward correction in prices. Brent crude, which hovered near $70 before the conflict, surged past $120 a barrel. If the closure persists through the second quarter, some analysts warn of a climb toward $200. For students of economics, this is a masterclass in supply-side shocks. This is not just about the price at the pump. It is about the contagion effect on global inflation. But the shock is not limited to oil. In a devastating retaliatory move, Iranian missiles caused extensive damage to Qatar's Ras Laffan, the heart of global liquefied natural gas exports. Qatar declared force majeure on major gas contracts with Europe and Asia. European natural gas prices jumped by 45%, threatening a deindustrialization crisis in fuel-intensive manufacturing. From a sociological and developmental lens, the most dangerous ripple is food. Nearly half of the world's traded urea, the most widely used fertilizer, moves through this corridor. With Gulf fertilizer plants shutting due to gas shortages, export prices have surged by 40%. Food security for billions is at risk, especially across South Asia and Africa. The 2026 Iran war proves that in a globalized world, a localized conflict is a myth. Beyond the balance sheets, we examine the sociology of destabilization. The fall of Tehran's central command has not silenced its regional proxies, it has unmoored them. From the Houthis in Yemen to Hezbollah in Lebanon, the response is a decentralized surge in asymmetric warfare. The chaos has triggered a massive humanitarian displacement. Over 3.2 million people are in transit, fleeing combat zones and collapsing local economies. For neighbours like Jordan and Turkey, this is a demographic stress test. Sudden inflows strain infrastructure, spark social friction, and reshape politics. Even if a ceasefire was signed tomorrow, the economic damage is baked in. Industry experts note it will take 3 to 4 months just to restart shut-in wells after the strait's closure. The global economy is holding its breath, waiting to learn whether this is a temporary fever or a permanent shift in world order. Engagement question. Is the world's reliance on the Strait of Hormuz a fundamental flaw in the 21st century economic model, or is there truly no alternative? Subscribe to Smartobrains and hit the bell. Next, the rise of a multipolar world and how China and Russia position themselves as Middle East mediators. The human toll is immense, lives disrupted, communities scattered. Yet the pattern is larger, a structural repricing of risk. Supply chains reroute, insurance premia climb, and energy becomes a daily variable, not a background constant. Economics and sociology move together. Price shocks rewrite household budgets and firm behaviour, testing the social contract. A 21-mile chokepoint becomes a global stress test where logistics, finance and politics converge. In this environment, resilience is not rhetoric. It is inventory, diversification and institutional trust under pressure. As actors adapt, incentives diverge. Some lock long-term barrels and build buffers. Others arbitrage through pipelines and shadow fleets. The West conserves and reroutes, inventory draws, efficiency pushes, and, at times, demand destruction. Volatile energy bleeds into food, shipping and insurance. Coordination lags real-time markets. Whether the Strait faces a prolonged partial blockade or a rapid de-escalation, the result rhymes: a durable, economy-wide repricing of risk. Up next, we connect this context to what comes after. Stay with us. Behind the explosions and headlines, the decisive moves travel through cables, code, and crowded control rooms. Power now flows across networks where seconds matter and silence is a tactic. As physical routes seize up, cyber operations shape what still moves. Ports, pipelines and power grids depend on timing and trust. When either slips, the map redraws itself in real time. When operators lose synchronization, ports post delays, tankers alter course, and dashboards drift behind reality. The system does not fail at once. It slips, one mismatched timestamp at a time. Industrial networks built for reliability, not hostility, expose seams between old control logic and modern remote access. Firmware becomes terrain, and a command in one room slows a conveyor in another city. Crews switch to manual modes that are safe but slow. Sensors misflag, teams recalibrate, and throughput bends. A second of latency becomes a minute of desynchronization, then a day of missed targets. Markets learn quickly. Each near miss adds buffers, and every buffer costs. Insurance deductibles rise, exclusions widen, and uptime guarantees soften as risk migrates from incident to price. Resilience turns practical. Companies buy spares, light dark fiber, drill manual overrides, and harden policies where postures once sufficed. Software matters, but so do topology, training, and trust. In a world of narrow straits and thin margins, cyber does not replace the battlefield. It multiplies it, amplifying disruption, sharpening deterrence, and quietly repricing the movement of goods and time. As prices rise and schedules slip, frustration leaves spreadsheets and enters daily life. What begins as noise, flares, chants, and camera phones, quickly arranges itself into lines that return night after night. Networks translate anger into coordination. Threads that once mapped supply routes begin to map bodies through streets. Pressure points appear in real time. Meeting points converge at the end of a workday. Institutions struggle at the edges where verification meets motion. A scanner that will not confirm a barcode stalls an entire aisle. The rule is simple and unforgiving. No scan, no ship. Delays that were once absorbed by inventory now price the week. Output slows as neighborhoods absorb the strain. Margins thin across shop floors, warehouses, and transit hubs. Pass-through arrives in the receipts. Fuel costs lift delivery fees. Groceries step upward. Transit strains as maintenance slips to the right. Households carry less slack than they used to, and a day of lost wages becomes a week of decisions. Collective efficacy takes hold. When a stoppage works once, repetition becomes strategy. Routes bend around chokepoints, authorities rehearse responses, doctrine adapts under pressure. Legitimacy becomes the scarce resource. Assurances falter when timelines do not match lived experience. National broadcasts frame order with cadence. Mobile videos frame urgency and proximity. Viewers compare feeds and circle discrepancies. Data confirms what the streets imply. Protest frequency rises with employment volatility, and election cycles sharpen the edges. Preference falsification breaks as people discover they are not alone. From port cities to campuses, blockades flicker at dusk, and arterial roads stall under pressure. Detours glow on map apps. Small nodes create outsized consequences in systems tuned for speed. By week's end, the montage quiets enough to see the pattern. Internal stability becomes a premium, priced daily, paid by everyone, and earned through competence, clarity, and trust. As streets fracture, maps begin to redraw. Trade routes thicken where choke points can be bypassed, and corridors promise reliability over speed. Power follows the hardware of the economy. It follows pipelines that bind partners in time, ports that decide which ships move first, and payment rails that decide who can settle, how quickly, and in which currency. China and Russia deepen links not only by trading more, but by rewiring routes and systems to lower exposure to single points of failure. Arctic passages, rail spurs, and north-south corridors, each an alternative with its own cost. Payment plumbing begins to bifurcate. SWIFT shares the stage with regional systems, and cross-border settlements in yuan rise from a small base. The base is small, but the direction is clear. Central bank swap lines widen the safety net, offering buffers rather than convertibility. Liquidity helps during a storm, but it does not remake savings preferences overnight. Sanctions push commerce toward grey zones, where compliance becomes part of the price. Tankers slip into the dusk, some transponders dark, while insurers and shippers shift liabilities across jurisdictions. Workarounds scale, and each adds latency and legal risk that eventually shows up on an invoice. Pipelines, storage caverns, and customs regimes become instruments of policy. They warehouse influence as much as they warehouse molecules, and their timelines outlast election cycles. Policy is built into logistics and paperwork, into lanes, seals, and codes. Each workaround adds latency and legal risk. Central bank swap lines widen buffers, not convertibility. Liquidity steadies flow, not trust. The yuan's role grows at the margin, as alternatives proliferate without replacing the core. The result is a world that still trades, but trades with more friction and less trust. Coordination cost becomes the new tariff, paid in extra signatures, slower cranes, longer voyages. Efficiency bleeds into insurance, into compliance, and into time, as the rhythms of paperwork embed into everyday movement. Between competing blocks, a gap market emerges, volatile, profitable, and fragile. Strategy hardens into procedure, procedure hardens into price. Pull back to the world map. Edges of blocks misalign, leaving grey gaps. Realignment is not consensus, it is drift. Keep your lens wide when everything narrows. In a globalized world, context matters. Subscribe to Smartobrains for IR, macro, and sociology deep dives. New analyses weekly.